Welcome to the Cali Sober Mom Podcast. Monica and Britney are changing the conversation about motherhood, cannabis, and mental health, considering themselves unhinged Martha Stewart adjacent. Monica is a previous corporate America warrior turned mom and voice in the cannabis and consumer advocacy world. Britney is an artist, business owner, mother, and mental health advocate. Now, here are your hosts, the Cali Sober Moms.
Welcome back to Cali Sober Mom. We are happy you made it to another fun episode with us. And Britney, before we dive in, you posted something last night on your Imperfect Inspiration account. And I have to mention it because it said something about once you realize imposter syndrome is everybody has it and nobody knows what they're doing and we're all just figuring it out. And then you say, well, I want to get in this freaking game and take my slice. You just do it. So true. And for anyone listening, that's all I did and then recruited Britney for Cali Sober Mom. We're just, if they can do it, we can do it. Or if a boy can do it, we can do it.
This is entirely true. And to be quite frank, one of the things that I still struggle with to this day owning a business is figuring out that there's a problem that I have to solve that I have no idea how to do. And I just assume I'm going to do it. My little mantra that I do in my head if I'm getting upset that I can't figure something out is, I go, you know what? Some mediocre white man figured this out with less tools, less resources, and less money than me. I've got this. I can do it. And that is literally what I play in my head when I'm stressed that I can't do something, because realistically, nobody freaking knows what they're doing. No one knows. No one knows. It's all made up and the points don't matter. No one knows. So just try. And if it fails, then guess what? Probably because it was too fucking hard and it's not possible. So keep going until you've literally exhausted everything and then walk away and call it a wash. It's not a big deal.
Well, thank you for posting that last night. In my doom scroll before bed, I saw it and I was like, oh, perfect. Well, in today's episode, we are bringing on a more professional than us in terms of the science. We told you we will never understand the science because that's not how our brains work, but we know how to find the people that know the science to get you this information. And one of the things Britney and I talked about was so far cannabis and hemp has really been a trial and error as we're in this learning curve, new, whatever it is situation. But I was recently introduced to this wonderful woman named Livi, who is starting a company called Discover Your Color, and they're going to solve this problem for us. So I'm going to introduce Livi, ask her some wonderful questions about herself, because her story, like ours, Britney, is we took something that could have brought us down and made it more impactful. So Livi, we are welcome to have you here.
Thank you so much. And what a kind introduction. And that is certainly what we are aiming to do, is to solve that problem. That was the mission from the very beginning. Was we saw a problem and we didn't just want to talk about it. We wanted to provide a real solution. And so 4.5, will be 5 years in the spring, we are actually deploying that solution. I can very happily and proudly say. So thank you for having me on. I'm excited.
Well, before we hear what the solution is, I know a little bit about your background and how you got here, but I know Britney does not know yet.
I need to know more. This is important. I love science people because it's a realm that I would have loved to go into, but it was kind of a pick your poison kind of moment. And I think that I wanted to go to med school. There were a lot of things that I wanted to do in my life. And I actually was registered at Iowa, Monica. I don't know if you knew that. I bailed a week before school started and took a year off after school. And
can I tell you how scared my dad was that I was gonna do that? He banned me from dating someone my senior summer, like through a fit, because he thought I would fall in love and not go to college.
I believe it. Right. But it's true. I think there's just so many pieces of people that it doesn't mean that I could never have been a designer and a scientist, but the likelihood was lower. And so, you kind of end up where you end up. And I think that it's so interesting to hear how other people kind of dive into the realms they're in. So please tell us, Livi.
Well, and first and foremost, I am not a scientist. I am not a software engineer, even though I have a science tech company. I have partnered with the best of the best to bring this about.
Companies need all of us. That's what we do.
Exactly. And so how this all did come about, though, was my personal story. So I was telling you before we got on, I am from Alabama. Lots of people hint the accent. And so I'm not just from Alabama. My mother was an assistant district attorney, prosecutor, specifically for the DEA in drug cases.
But let's not just gloss over that too quickly here. I really want everyone to hear that we are doing an interview with someone that's rolling out technology to really help consumers feel comfortable in the cannabis space and comes from a lineage of a prosecutor specifically related to drug charges. Okay, I just got the tingles again. I want to make sure we didn't just gloss over it.
It's a huge deal. I dated somebody that's an assistant district attorney, and even though his personal beliefs around cannabis and drug use may not align, when I tell you there isn't a chance in hell, even if he got completely out of prosecuting or completely out of government service, I can tell you without question, he would never do anything that made him publicly known regarding that because of how intense some of those expectations are and how intense some of those, especially in the South, are deeply, deeply rooted in a lot of prejudice. And I think that it's important to have people that see science, see data, see reality and say, you know what? I see that some mistakes have been made, but I also see where this could do some good. So I love that you come from that background. Love.
And that was it. And I also wholeheartedly, like a good Southern Christian girl, did not like cannabis. Was very anti. Until I got to college, like many people do, I've always been a bit artsy, so I was in a little bit of the art scene. And so I started to hang around people that smoke. And I was like, wait, you're not degenerates. This isn't and my whole mind started to shift.
You're still passing your classes and your brain isn't fried.
They were actually sometimes the smartest people I was talking to. So that was another big part. It was like I said, my whole mind was being blown. But what really started to change and made the impact was in 2011, I was 20 years old and I was in the F5 tornado that came through Tuscaloosa and ripped through the town. I lost my car, my apartment building was condemned, and I had been put on medical leave 2 days before the tornado hit for severe anxiety and depression following a good friend of mine's death, breaking up with a boyfriend. A lot of things were happening all at once. That's all happened within about a 3-week period.
And I don't want to call you out for your age either, but just like the DEA part was impactful. Okay, so breakup, loss of a close friend, anxiety, medical leave in a massive tornado. Because I remember seeing those pictures. I was at Florida State in Tallahassee at the time. How old were you? Because I'm 38 now and I would have a hard time handling all of that. And you were how old when this happened?
20.
That is a lot. You're not even a fully developed brain yet, according to science. That is so much to have happen.
Yeah. And it got worse after the tornado hit. And that was, I did not have a good support system. That's just the truth of it. And so I was struggling with housing because lost my housing. I had a job, but then I was fired from my job because I started having grand mal seizures. They could not explain exactly what was causing them because I'm not epileptic, but they did tie it. But I was diagnosed with severe PTSD. And so they said, you're having what we can only describe are severe stress-induced grand mal seizures, and they were full-on grand mals. I kept having them at work and scaring people away. So I was fired and again, was struggling with housing. But I was using cannabis. I was starting to use cannabis to kind of help with anxiety and depression. But then I moved in with, I've ridden horses my whole life. That's kind of my thing. And so there was a woman who happened to be a little like 70s hippie.
Love those.
And this was a big deal in Alabama, right? She had a little farm and I had a little like project horse at the time that I was trying to train up. And so she said, come out with me, live on my farm, help take care of my horses, smoke all the pot you want. because I was also being labeled a drug addict because I was using cannabis. That was the only thing that I was using, and my prescribed Xanax. But to small time Alabama at that time, that was part of the problem. So she was like, I think this is part of the solution. And also, I must say, I dropped down to it was around 78 pounds was at my lowest, because I was also struggling to eat.
Gosh.
And from financially, and also just from all of the stress. I'm not a stress eater. I'm one of those that will just not eat in stress.
I mean, you just don't look like a very big human to begin with.
I'm not. I'm
Just by stature, you don't seem like a very large human. So that is concerning.
Yes. And so I moved in with this woman who I did not know very well, but she just kind of took me, saw someone that was in need, took me in and said, we're going to get you on a better diet. We're going to, you're going to be with your horses, and you're going to smoke all the pot you want. She was like, and I'll even help make sure you get it. So I had one seizure with her, but then started to go seizure free. And we were like, okay, this is good for my stress management. It was so good. And so then I went 4 years seizure free. This is not the most dramatic part of the story. It gets more dramatic. I know it's a bit intense.
Women are so resilient. I just want to say that. Like,
Thank you.
The things we've been through, like the all of us, is just wild.
Yes. But this all does have to tie in with cannabis. And so I went into, so I'm using cannabis, and cannabis helping keep seizures away. Fantastic. Remember, I told you horses was my thing, and horses are expensive. So I went into finance, specifically to finance horses. I said this in job interviews. They asked me, they're like, what motivates you? I was like, horses, and they're expensive, and I want to ride my horses. And so I'm good at psychology. I'm good at numbers. Let's go. And so I was then working at Morgan. So I started out as a part-time teller, then got up to Morgan Stanley, was a stockbroker, private banker, hybrid thing, and then started suffering from hemorrhagic ovarian cysts. And that cascaded into a whole litany of issues, which resulted in 17 hospitalizations in 15 months.
wow.
5 major operations, the removal of all non-vital organs except my spleen. That's including a radical hysterectomy. I was 25 when all of this was happening, 24 to 25. Again, not in a good situation, not a good support system. Kind of, again, this was, it was a little bit of a repeat, and as cycles tend to. And so it was incredibly dramatic and traumatic for me.
You had every right to feel every ounce of trauma and pain. If nobody's told you that before, because I feel like we try to almost like downplay it a little bit, but you went through something major, and kudos to you for coming out of it. I know we'll get to the like promising part, but just kudos to you.
Well, thank you. And there is, and during that time too, the seizures came back. So it was kind of, and I had to resign from Morgan Stanley. They said I would basically be an invalid for the rest of my life. I was on 90 Percocets a month. And I was on benzos in the morning, benzos at night. Because of all of the surgeries, I have now what's called abdominal adhesions, and I have actually a really severe case of it. My insides basically look like spider webs. And so this causes chronic pain all the time because it's always pulling on organs and so forth. And so this caused sleep issues, which caused mood issues. So they had me on an entire litany of things. And I did have a very truly come to Jesus kind of a moment where I was like, okay, what is my life's worth? What is my value? I have no job. I cannot have children. I'm 25 years old. I don't really feel like I mean that much to anyone, but I've got to be important. God created me for a purpose. And I'm very strong in my faith. And I'm like, I have a purpose. I don't know what that is. And then it did something whispered business. I had no idea what that was, but something whispered business. So I kind of got back this gusto, and I was like, I'm not going to be dead by 30, which is what some people were basically saying.
Wow.
She's going to be dead by 30. I did have doctors walk into my hospital because I was hospitalized 2 times, 1 month each. I have had doctors come in and say, I didn't think you'd make it through the night because I've had sepsis and shutting down. And so lots and lots and lots of issues. But I did believe I had a purpose, and I did not know exactly what that was, but I was continuing to use cannabis. So I wasn't taking as much of the medications as they wanted me to. They wanted me to take even more. And I was like, no. And I actually My 17th hospitalization, I got out. I was in for a month. I got out and I was like, I'm done. Something broke and snapped. And I said, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. So I got a whiteboard.
Love me a whiteboard.
And I got me an ounce of cannabis. And I said, I'm getting off this shit. Sorry if we can't curse. I don't know if that's okay, but I'm getting off of it.
I would not be present if we could not curse, just so everyone.
And so what I did is I basically put myself in withdrawals, but would, and did the tapered myself off. I did this entirely on my own. No one was with me while I did this.
Also, probably not recommended if anybody is on. Just
not recommended, and definitely not for someone that has seizures.
Just for my own cover your ass medical advice. Don't sue Cali Sober Mom.
Well, and it's so different now than it used to be, because how old were you at this time, Livi?
I was 25.
So if we think about that, how old are you now? Are you our age?
34.
Late 30s. Yeah. So like, if you think about that, that was still a decade ago. And ultimately, there still was not a whole lot of acceptance in the cannabis as medical use space even 10 years ago. I don't know that you would have been able to find a provider that would titrate you off of a really strong pharmaceutical regimen the way that now, it's still not super easy to find, but I feel like you could find a supervising medical human to make that happen now. It's definitely a very different space than it used to be because of people like you. But keep telling your story. Sorry.
Monica, you did the right thing. And I usually do 0 out of 10, do not recommend. The one thing I did do was I would call, I had work at the time, and I called my boss and I would talk to him through it. And he was just like, you're just badass for going through it. And he would hold, and, he'd sit on the phone with me while I'm going through the withdrawals, all for Dilaudid, because when I was in the hospital, they would have me on 3 milligrams Dilaudid IV every 3 hours. I am not a big person. It was an enormous amount. The nurses were shocked that they didn't have to Narcan me. So when I got out, I just wanted to get off it. And I did get off of Dilaudid in 10 days. Then I titrated way down on Percocets, where I was basically only taking half a Percocet like every other day, and then got off of it completely in 2018, 2019. What happened was, actually, I met my now husband. He's from Russia. He's a Russian Brit, actually. He's a dual citizen. But being from Russia and the UK, he comes over here and he's like, you guys have the most effed up medical system.
Correct, sir.
He's like, you're sick because you're taking poison.
And you're eating poison. Well, that's another episode, but...
He actually said that too. Nope. He said it too. He goes, you eat like poison. You're taking poison. And he goes, you are an athlete, but so let's focus on getting the horses. Let's focus on the athletics part. It's like, let's peel you off medicine piece by piece. He was not a cannabis fan at the time, but he saw how much it helped me. And now he's my co-founder.
He's turned around on his thoughts, clearly.
So yes, piece by piece. And I got off of all pharmaceuticals except for my hormone replacement therapy. In 2019, I not only got back to my career, but I was head of investor relations for a hedge fund by the time I was 29, out of New York. And I was ranked 5th in the country for my division in 3-day eventing, which is like the triathlon of horses. So it's one of the more grueling ones. And that was in 2019. And then in 2020, as I was working for the hedge fund, they were primarily, or still are, they are primarily invested in the cannabis space and in the science space. And it was my first job where telling my story was part of the interview. So I kind of loved that, and they were very receptive. And so I learned a lot about the science. I learned a lot about the problems in the industry. And the biggest problem that I saw was that it was such a Wild West. People didn't know what they were buying. It was the trial and error. I thought that was a big problem. I thought the big problem that we had it bifurcated between rec, adult use, vice, and medical for the same plant was something that was causing far more harm than good.
It's confusing. It is a sea of noise out there. And for the average person that's not investing 8 hours of their day to learn it, and I still feel like I've scratched the surface, how are they supposed to get educated? So yes, you were dead on with what you were seeing there.
I feel the same way now. I just got my med card for Iowa last week. Literally, I did it so that I could inform our listeners on how damn easy it is. And also from there, I want to see what's available in Iowa versus what is in other states, because right now I drive my ass to another state to get some. And that's pretty much how it works. And I'm pretty bright. I'm an excellent researcher. And when I tell you even the minutia of what broad details I could take in, I'm not even getting a fraction of it. I have no idea. Like, what terpenes do I need to be using for my perfect, like, blend of being chill and still creative and not passing out? I don't know. That's so much mathing in science. I can't do that. So
Exactly.
I love what you guys are doing.
If I can say this boldly, is that I knew I had a compelling story. I knew I had a different game. That was kind of objective. I was like, all right, I've got a story. But I was like, a lot of people have stories. I've met hundreds of people, probably, and heard thousands of deeply compelling. Everyone's story is personal to them. Everyone's story is a story of overcoming and a story of triumph. Just because mine's dramatic and, has some fun, has a good sense there, doesn't make it any more important than someone else's story that has found healing and wellness through this plant. So I was like, I'm not going to be just another story. This has to come with a solution. One of my mentors says he's never met anyone more goal-oriented. And so he's like, that's all I have to do is give you a goal and you'll figure it out. And so in 2020, we set out with a goal, and we do have we've got an internal motto that we said, honor the granny. This has to be good enough and easy enough that a granny can understand it. But then we have also I don't want to call it a mission statement, because so many times when people say mission statement, it's BS. What I will say is these are our 3 pillars of the company, and everything we do has to check mark all 3. And it starts with that we have to respect the plant for what it is, good, bad, and indifferent. We have to respect the plant. We have to care for the people, and we have to validate the industry. If anything falls through on that, we don't participate, we don't indulge, we don't endorse. And so anything that we do, that we put out, has to meet all 3 of those standards. It has to be putting the person first, has to respect the plant, and it has to be validating the industry. And I'm putting cannabis and hemp together. It's the same plant, same industry. The fact it's bifurcated is dumb. But we could have a whole science lesson on that later. So long story short, in the past 4.5, so I left in 2020, actually quit on 4/20. I did that a little bit on purpose. I left Wall Street on 4/20 of 2020. And it did not go past my boss either. He messaged me and he's like, you totally did that on purpose. I was like, yeah, I did. And we are still great friends. He's still a mentor.
He seems like a cool guy based on what you said.
Fabulous. Yeah. So, I don't have horror stories coming from Walt. I actually have very fond memories of working with a lot of really actually great men from Wall Street, because there were just not any women around, and especially not in what we were doing. So we had this great idea, but we needed science, right? And that's when we found, you've got to go look up Dr. Jean Talleyrand. He is the most unsung hero of this industry. He's been seeing cannabis patients since 1998. Came out of his residency seeing cannabis patients. He is an Ivy League trained physician that has foregone a physician's life to treat cannabis patients. He risked his medical license to give a 4-year-old CBD back in 2009. I think it was 2009 for her seizures. This is a man who, I'm not afraid to say this. He said to me, God strike me down if I do not help these people. He said, I've seen miracles. And so I have to do this.
The world needs to hear this. The whole world. Keep going. The world needs to hear this.
Yes. So we fondly know him and call him Dr. T. Y'all, he's got dreadlocks. He's amazing. He grew out his dreadlocks so that he could infiltrate the California cannabis underscene. And back in the day, he had a vision. He's a surfer. He is an absolute, like I said, icon of the industry, one of the most unsung heroes. And so he's not just, between him and one other partner, they've seen over 100,000 cannabis patients.
They know what they're doing, y'all. They know what they're doing here.
So what he has also been doing for the past, say, 10 years has been specifically studying. And he has been specifically studying the chemistry of the flower and how it interacts with the people. So our system, it looks so simple. It's 4 groups and 4 colors, but it is underpinned by 30 years of research, hundreds of thousands of patient interactions, study after study. It's the most robust system out there. So it's in my opinion, it's one of the best things you could ask for, which is simple on the surface, but complex under the hood.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we are moving forward with that.
Well, so for us as consumers, how would we do it? Do we go into like our local store and work with them on it? Or would I download it to my phone? How do I find my color? Help me discover my color.
Your color, Libby.
So it's you're going to have to get your operators on it first. We are building a consumer app that will be coming out. But in the meantime, go to your dispensaries or your hemp shops. Both can come on, and basically they get onto our platform. We go in and we color their entire inventory. So then you've got it colored. So we've got the product up. We've got the system going. It's honestly, we need y'all's help, the consumers, to run out, tell them that you want the colors, and we do the rest. We do all the heavy lifting.
And I know for me, I would definitely want my color because as I've learned, there's specific things I like about cannabis and some reactions that I don't. And I was just telling Britney this on a previous episode. I was so excited to get some for a hurricane party and I wanted to try new things, but my regular dispensary had someone brand new there working by themselves and it was like talking to a brick wall. So I had to go to tried and true. Whereas if I have my color and I can go into any store and say, I want yellow or I want pink, and they can just stick to the pinks versus having to give another bud tender my entire life story because I don't want to do that every time, would be huge.
And that's what we solve for. It really, and it's already been proven out in California. We've got a dispensary that loves it, lives by it. So it's a tried and true system. It's just new, so we're getting it out there. But it's really encouraging to hear that you guys would love this.
From a manufacturing standpoint, Monica comes from, honestly, your Wall Street background looks a lot more like hers and your current background looks a lot more like mine. So one of the things as a manufacturing person, I know that one of those questions is, okay, yeah, you have all these colors, but then I don't want to go through and redo all my labels and blah, blah, blah. You guys, there are so many solutions for things like that. You could get colored stickers and pop them on there. Just because the technology exists doesn't mean you have to change every component of your marketing or of your branding or of your packaging. We're small business owners too. We understand that nobody wants to go spend $10,000 on new packaging. We get that. Let's come up with an interim option that's helpful for people. And we drop a really cute little sign on the top of the bud tenders thing and you're able to look through those and have a reminder real quick. That is such a fantastic solution. I love it.
I smell a Cali Sober Mom certified colored sticker made from the geniuses at Imperfect Inspiration.
I might design stickers for a living or something. I might do that.
The Discover Your Color sales pitch. I love it. But Livi, this was absolutely amazing. Everything you have done is so impactful. It's so huge. We fully support Discover Your Color. We'll help you in any way on this journey. And
thank you.
I want to do this with everyone again in a year, just to hear where they are. But thank you so much for being here.
Oh, guys, thank you so, so much. And I look forward to listening in and to growing with you guys and doing it again in a year. I think that sounds like a great idea.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thanks for listening to the Cali Sober Mom Podcast. The best way for us to get the word out is you. So share this episode with someone you know who will enjoy it. And be sure to follow Cali Sober Mom on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're consuming the show right now.